Zell, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I am so excited to tell your
Ah,
story. Thank you really for being here with us and allowing the listeners to get a glimpse of what your journey has been like to achieve all of the
mm.
wonderful things that you have achieved this far personally, professionally, and all of the amazing work you have done for our community. So really,
Oh,
thank you
wow.
for being here.
Now, Alvin, thank you. And I don't have a story to tell, really. I'm just me, Zell.
Well, it's been a
Uh,
it's amazing that you say that because a lot of the women that I interview, we all feel that way.
okay,
We
good.
all feel like
Very
we don't
good.
have a story to share, but honestly, I believe and believe it to be true that we all do have a story,
That's
and
true.
that's what makes us
That's true.
unique.
I think probably the fact that you don't think anybody's interested in your story. So
Yes.
that's why you hold back or don't say anything. Well, for me, I laugh because, I take everybody thinks I'm extroverted or whatever, and then when I take the personality test, I am so introverted. So you just be who you have to be.
Well, it's a skill you've learned
It
along your
is.
journey.
It is.
And I bet that all of the amazing things you have done on your path have probably allowed you to blossom and really hone in on those skills
Ah,
to become who you are
like
today.
I like the way you
If I
put
had to guess, you were
that.
probably not like that when you were a little girl or maybe in high school.
Probably not. Probably not.
Well, let's start at the beginning then.
Okay.
Let's start with where did you grow up? Um, what influenced you and talk about your journey to where you have become now, maybe from a professional aspect, like what things allowed you to
Okay.
progress and where all you have been, because I know
Ah.
there's lots of little surprises in that journey.
Well, I was born in DeSoto County in a small town called Nesbit, which is right outside of Hernando. That's where I went to school, graduated, and I'm the youngest. My mother had 18 children. There were 15 that lived to be grown that I grew up with and spoiled rotten by my
Wow.
dad. Loved it. And my family had so much influence over me. My mom was, I thought she was mean at the time, but as I've grown and looked back over the years, she had so much wisdom in how she raised all of us. And, some were married and grown. I have four nieces and nephews that are older than I am. So it's amazing. And we talk about it sometimes how we grew up as a family, but we love each other, and family means so much to each one of us. So that's something that has stayed with me through my life, but had examples, my siblings, of how to be successful. Had a sister that was a business owner, and the brothers working. Three went into the armed services. So examples all around me of how to just do what you need to do. And I met JB. We're not married now, but I met him in college at Mississippi Valley State and married and moved to Tupelo, and that's how I got here. So this was
Okay.
his hometown.
Okay.
So been here since 1971. Family tried their best to get me to move back home, but it was close enough for me to be away. And because I was the youngest and never had anything, my mom was very protective of me. It's the baby. She called me baby to the day she died.
Mm.
And so never worked a job until after I got married. And my first job was with the phone company here in Tupelo. Didn't like that, so I ended up working at the hospital for a while and went to a doctor's office, and I got a call from one of my instructors at Itawama Community College, and they had recommended me for a position at City Hall. That was during segregation, and they had to have an African American, a black person there at City Hall. I went and interviewed on a Saturday and got hired that Monday by Mayor Clyde Whitaker, David Long, and started my career there with the City of Tupelo. Was there 34 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And next job was Boys and Girls Club. So it's a small town girl, coming to a small city, but with big ideas, and that's what I love. And Tupelo has been wonderful to me, and it has allowed me to pursue some of the things that I want to do, and I'm very appreciative of that.
So you've mentioned a couple of positions that you were not fond of, before you got your position with the city of Tupelo.
Hmm.
What how long did you stay in those positions? Sometimes we talk about the big positions we were at forever, but what is it that you knew that you did not like about those positions that did not encourage you to stay there?
I worked with AT&T, and I did not like it because at the time it was the split shifts. You go in, you work a while, you got to come back in the afternoon. You worked holidays, you worked weekends, and like I said, I love family. So those were the times when you would get together. So when I got a chance, even though it was a great paying job, when I had the chance to leave it and go to another position, I did. I
Gotcha.
did.
And so, talking about your position with the city, you knew that you were the what we now call a diversity hire,
Yeah,
or it was the quota number that probably was part of the legal turnaround. That How
right.
did that impact you and influence you knowing that? Did it ever impact you personally, or were you
Yeah,
just thinking this is an opportunity, I'm going to go for it?
it did. It did. I didn't consider hardly the challenge of it because I thought people would be open and accepting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was surprising because there were some who were.
Mm-hmm.
I laugh. I said, I think they had meetings to say, treat this person, whoever we hire, a certain way or whatever. So there were people who were very open and friendly towards me, especially David Long. He's the one that hired me. I was in his department. But I also saw a note where, a person was saying, don't hire a minority because they won't be able to do the job. And
Wow.
that was challenging to me to think that someone would form an opinion to think just because you're black,
That's
you
right.
don't have the knowledge to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically had to teach myself my job because the person whose place I was taking, she refused to train me.
Wow.
So I had to learn everything that I could on my own.
Well, you
And it
proved
worked
them
out.
wrong.
I proved them
You
wrong.
proved them wrong.
Much prayers. I'll tell you, lots of prayers, but
it you're so graceful in your delivery, Zell, of
uh,
explaining that, but that is such a difficult task. It is such a, and I bet if you, I know that your faith is very important to
it is.
you and your
It is.
family is. You've
It
already mentioned
is.
that a few
Yep.
times. I bet they helped you through that journey, because you get discouraged if you would have done it alone, or maybe wouldn't have even lasted as
Yeah.
long and had the wonderful career that you had with the
Yeah.
city.
And when I mentioned Tupelo, that's part of what has helped me is that I had friends here that I had made who were supportive. I had worked at North Mississippi Medical Center for a while. I had friends there, and just knowing more people, but knowing that I needed to be successful because it all rested on me
Mm-hmm.
being successful there at City Hall if they would hire another black person there.
That's right.
So I had that on me,
Mm.
but you just do the best you can.
Well, you were a trailblazer. How old were you when you started?
How old?
Yes.
Oh,
That you were.
26, I think. I
Wow.
think
Oh,
26.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Being young and having so much on your shoulders so early on, and you recognizing that
Hmm.
is a big testimony to how you were raised. I think, again, talking about your mom and
Yeah,
the expectations she had for
yeah.
you, but you knew you were carrying the torch for others and
Right.
opening doors and
That's
opportunities for
correct.
them.
Yep.
So you've been a trailblazer for a long time.
Well, I never think
I
about it in
love.
that way.
I know you don't, but
Just,
that's something within you that I think you are. That's part of your core, and you
ah,
recognize that for others because you really are a servant at heart. And that, I mean, we're sitting here amongst all your
ah,
accolades, but you didn't know that at the time when you were
no,
26. You were just
no.
beginning, honestly, your career.
It was. It was.
And so, what was your journey like that? Having to train yourself, and as times evolved, how did your outlook evolve, and how did you, as a person and personality, evolve
Hmm.
through your experiences? Because I think you had a progressive career with the city.
Yeah, I did. I did. And my job, started out, and I tell people, especially some of the ladies, I said, being a secretary or an administrative assistant, you are the most powerful person
I
in that
agree.
office because
I agree.
you see all of the correspondence that come in, you see all of the correspondence that goes out. And
Mhm.
as you learn about the business or the person that you're working with or whatever, it opens a door for you to succeed. And to me, that position helped me. And I think because I had to learn the things to do, I had the skill set, but the interaction with people that came into that office, all the different things, and it changed. I went from purchasing to the planning department, and that was something new for me. But I was allowed to do things that I would not have ordinarily done in that role. So the city of Tupelo provided the opportunity for me to progress and succeed towards my career.
But that's a testament to your work ethic and your personality too, because thinking about that time too, that's when women really didn't do much outside of
You're
clerical
right.
work. And
You're
so to
right.
be an African American at that and the
Yep.
first one hired by the
Yeah.
city or in that
At
capacity
City Hall.
at City
Yeah.
Hall, I
Yeah.
mean, that is huge. And so many of us, as women in general, when you look back at the history, definitely don't want to forget that because it took a
No.
lot of other women of all ethnic
Yeah.
backgrounds,
Hmm.
but in your case in particularly, you knew that was a pivotal moment in
Right.
history in general. Even for our area, it's so important. You have to have those examples. So that's I mean that's amazing to have those opportunities because that's your character
Yeah.
that
Oh,
opened your
thank
work
you.
ethic, I think.
Thank you.
I think if you would have not performed above and beyond. A lot of times now, I think about the women that are either in corporate world or trying to be on
Hmm.
boards or trying to be involved.
Hmm.
Feel like we have to scrapple a little sometimes. We have to get because there's always that a little bit of that where you
Right.
have to feel like you have to prove
Right.
yourself. But when you look back at the history of women in general, they were home keep makers.
Yeah.
They were at home taking care of the children, and they
Right.
were not expected
Hmm.
to do anything else. So when everyone
Yeah.
started to transition into other career pathways, it kind of
It
took
did.
off.
And the one thing, and I don't know where the conversation will go, but one thing that I learned early was being prepared for whatever I'm having to address or participate in. And I've been blessed to serve on a number of nonprofit boards. And going into an area where you don't know really what it's all about, just find out, know what's going on. And that's the key to being successful, really, part of it, a
Yeah.
big part of it.
Yeah, being curious,
Yeah.
right? Asking questions,
Yep.
jumping in when the help when
Definitely.
somebody needs something, or being a resource.
Right.
And for our listeners, that some of the things that we do, whether it's through the Women's Entrepreneurs Group or through
Mm-hmm.
our community service, that's what it's about. It's sometimes
Yep.
going the extra mile because that's what's going to make you stand
It
out.
is. Mm-hmm.
And it may not flourish into something, that week, that month, that year, but it may take you somewhere else and it will help you
Right.
develop those
Yep.
relationships. It'll help
That's it.
establish your character and who you are as a person
Right.
with those
Mm-hmm.
individuals that you're interacting
Mm-hmm.
with. Speaking of your nonprofit work
Okay.
and your community work, you are the CEO of North Mississippi Boys and Girls Clubs.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about your journey to your love for community and nonprofit work and when did it
Ah.
really all begin?
It began early when I started working with the city through United Way. And I tell people that United Way opens the door to a community because volunteering there, I learned about all of the nonprofit agencies that were applying for funding. And it started from volunteering, being on the review committees for grants, and it led up to actually me being president of the board for United
Mm.
Way. So that opened doors for me as far as building relationships, knowing who people were, those things. And because I saw the value of nonprofit, the things that it did to help communities, that became one of the things that I, always had problems saying no to. And I'll be honest with you, so many times I would be the only African American in that room.
So tell us about that because I'm not surprised to hear that at all. So what was that like
uh,
for you? And you were still a young professional at that time.
yeah, yeah. Am I old now?
Well,
I am. I am.
that was the beginning of your journey, Zell. No, you are young at heart
I
there,
am old
lady.
now. Good cover. But It was interesting in itself, and again, where I talk about being prepared,
Mm,
always knowing if we got an agenda beforehand, knowing what was what, being able to read those minutes before so that I'll know what I'm voting for. So knowing what the meeting is all about. And I had that realization that I'm just as smart as any other person in the room, whether
mm,
they be millionaires, because I've been in those boardrooms too, where
yes.
millionaires and all of those people are there. But just knowing that we're focusing on this particular issue and being informed and knowledgeable about it. Because I did on one board, they talked about football. Well, my sons played football, so I knew the game, so I could talk to.
Yeah, you knew how to
So
connect.
you learn that.
Let's talk more about that,
Okay.
because I think relationship building, it sounds so easy, but you have to
No.
work at it. And what I love hearing you say throughout this entire conversation is preparation.
Yep.
Preparation, preparation,
Yep.
preparation. And you never went into, it sounds like, any boardroom or meeting blindsided. You knew what you were there to do.
Tried not
You
to.
were okay. So there's two questions
Okay.
to this. So how did you find your voice to speak up, knowing that you were the only African American in the room, and at that a woman? And at the
Ah.
time, your age too, being a
Yeah.
young African
Yeah.
American woman in these rooms.
Yeah. My mother, I mean, she was only like 4 feet 12 inches, maybe 5 feet or whatever. But she showed me so much courage. Back in our time, there was a white couple that lived down the road, and the man would come and he would blow the horn, and my dad would go outside. My mother was one of those. She said, if they want me, they'll come to the door. So she basically, showed me that, hey, you just be you, who you are, and know that. So anytime that I was able to get into a boardroom, I realized that they may not ever get another one if I'm not prepared.
Mm,
But also, I felt like an obligation to speak up when they're talking about getting new board members. Me saying, "Hey, have you thought about adding some diversity?" And
mm-hmm,
I don't see anybody else that look like me. And it
mm-hmm,
takes courage for you to speak up and
mm-hmm.
say that. But
Yeah,
I laugh. I said, sometime I got to serve one term and didn't go back, even if they were able had the policy where you could come back. But I felt an obligation to represent the community, but also represent my race, represent the knowledge that a person of color has, or whatever. So if you don't speak up, they don't think about it.
that's right. That's right. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, because we talk
Sure.
about it a lot. And all, from like a women's perspective, it's very different than being very observant of the race and considering that and having your
Yeah.
obligation. But it's so true with the way we build capacity in other ways, just
Mhm.
in general.
Mhm.
Women get a bad rep for not speaking another woman's, a name, or having those relationships, and that's
Yeah.
so important to, it's our duty.
Yeah.
You
It
felt like it
is.
was your duty, like, I'm going to make sure this happens.
Right.
And I think it's our duty to either let people know that we're
Mhm.
interested and want to
Mhm.
do it,
Mhm.
or we bring in those people that we believe have something to
Yeah.
contribute. So many
That's it.
times we feel like we don't, because we either don't see someone like us, who looks like us, talks like us, does like us, or is maybe even a different gender. But it is our obligation to
Yeah,
bring
it
that
is.
forth. And you, as a leader, as a young leader at the time, you were already cognitive of that. And
Well,
that is so special.
a lot of times I had to speak loud
Yes.
because just kind of hold up your hand or whatever, and I got kind of ignored. So I'd
Yeah.
speak up softly in the normal tone, and I would be ignored. So I'd speak louder, and at some point they would recognize me and listen to what I say, and I feel good that I had pretty good ideas, I
Yeah.
think.
How did you not get discouraged when you were not heard and had to repeat it? Did you just take it upon yourself and say, I'm going to keep saying it until they hear
That's
me?
exactly
Or,
right. That's exactly
oh, I
right.
love that.
Yeah, you're not a nuisance, but you let them know I'm here in the same capacity as you are.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you took your role very seriously because you were already in the room.
Yeah.
You know, you earned your stripes, or at least you earned the right to be in the room. So you took it very seriously once you got in the room. It wasn't just, you know, a resume builder, you
No.
know, and
No.
things were different back then, but you really took it upon yourself to go above
Right.
and beyond, and I think that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, I will say this, and you may take it out or whatever, but I refuse to be a token. I knew back
Mm,
then that so many times you selected to serve on that board because they needed diversity,
yes.
whether it be for funding or appearance or whatever else. But I took it upon myself. If I'm there, I'm going to represent
Mhm.
and be this effective board member and not just somebody in the room of different color or whatever,
That's right. You were going
female.
to be contributing
Oh,
and providing
definitely.
value.
Definitely.
Well, your
Definitely.
heart is in it, so I could see why they would want to.
Ah.
And there's a possibility that some people looked at it that way, but you really turned around into benefit of
Well,
what you wanted to
I try.
accomplish for your community, because these days we have data that proves the more diverse you
Yep.
are, the better you are, the
Yep.
more successful you are, because you have viewpoints of all these different people with different
Right.
backgrounds, experiences, interests that only allow you to be better and stronger. And
Hmm.
there's proven stories of companies that have failed because they did not
Did
take that
not
into
listen. Did
consideration.
not listen.
You know, did not listen. So talking about relationships, let's
Hmm.
go back earlier. I started on this a little bit. How did you cultivate relationships and friendships as you grew through your career? Because you have personally intertwined with your community work, and as you transition from the city of Tupelo to your current role, and of course you have philanthropy and you have fundraising and the mission that you have with the Boys and Girls
Hmm.
Club. But how has your relationship building helped you accomplish all the things you have?
Gosh, it's all about relationships.
It
Yeah,
really is.
it's all about relationship. Whether you're fundraising, whether you're doing anything, it's about relationship. And you go being who you are. I laugh because I say, okay, are we going to meet Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde? Some people have that dual personality, but to me, just be who I am at all times and let people know me. I tell as much as I want to share with people from a personal or professional standpoint, but I want people to know Zell Long. I love, like I said, I talk about my children and whatever else, and I've got a daughter that posts forever on Facebook. so, so people know me different ways, but just being genuine with them and talking
Yeah,
to them, letting them know. That's how I build relationships,
I
and
love
doing what I
that.
say.
I love that. So being genuine
Hmm.
and doing what you say, being a
Yep.
person of your word.
Yep.
I love that.
Exactly.
Let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Talk to me about a particularly challenging moment in your journey. I know we've discussed a lot, but is
Ah,
there one that sticks out? And it doesn't have to be anything in particular. I'm just curious, something that you had
yeah.
a challenge with. Anything come to mind?
Well, City Hall, like I said, being the first African American there.
Yes.
But the other was in 2015 when I had a stroke. I
Mm,
am a workaholic or whatever.
yes.
And
Welcome to the club, dear lady. We're following your footsteps.
so I put in the time that it takes to get the job done and really put myself, especially with the children being grown, whatever. So work became what I did. And when I had that stroke in 2015, I didn't know if I'd be able to come back to work, what was I going to do, how I was going to recuperate or whatever. But Alvin, by the grace of God and my family, my children, they were all there supporting me, friends. I mean, I had so many flowers until, people showing their love to me. Nobody knows how much that helped me to want to come back and do and be and whatever. And by the grace of God, the one thing I prayed for was that, Lord, let me be able to sing because I love singing
Mm,
and praise leader at the church. And I was saying, Lord, let me get my voice. Let me have my voice back so that I can give you praise and worship. And it's not like it was, but I still got it. I still got it. So was defining for me. I mean, God has done so many things. I've had cancer 3 times and survive. So it's kind of a path of survival for me and just coming back to being the best you can be in every situation.
I remember that time during
Uh,
your, um, I- uh, I was already at Create, so I had the opportunity to see you work around you. And
yeah.
now that I think back at it, I can't imagine what a difficult time that was for you in transition. I remember a
Yeah.
lot of people were concerned about you. There were a lot of questions, but it was more about questions of, you know, will Zell be okay because we know how much she
Ah.
loves to do what she's doing.
Mhm.
And I think you were always in such good spirits. I think you were always, I remember, I feel like we had one interaction where you were always genuine because you didn't try to sugarcoat it.
I did
And I think
not.
you were concerned, but at the same time, you were just like, one day at a time,
That's
one
it.
foot in front of the other, do what I
Yep.
can. And then it, like you said, by God's grace and lots of prayer
It
and
was.
support, you were able to come out
Yeah.
of it. But that
Mhm.
was a difficult, I think it's
Mhm.
difficult when you have a challenge with your body,
Yes.
because, especially as I get older, from my, like, there's things that I want to do when my brain is still the same, but my body isn't,
Right.
And so when you
Oh,
have
keep
a health
living. Keep living.
experience and you had that
Yeah.
happen, I'm sure it was a very difficult thing.
Right.
How did you, well, you already told us how you coped with that. And so that's such a testament to your relationships that you have
Oh.
established. Because I think about, well, what else could you have done? But frankly, if you don't have a good support system and people
Mm.
encouraging you and brightening up your day, it's
Right.
hard to stay motivated and determined to overcome
You're
what you have
right.
in front of you.
And the one thing that happened here, the staff is tremendous.
Mm,
And so having a team that could pick up that load, everybody just started chipping in and doing something. But that was a decision I had to make. Was I able to come back? Well, are they
mm,
going to be able to do the things that I had to do? And, like I said again, by the grace of God, I'm back. Now, they may say, hey, I don't know, but, I just keep trying. But
yeah.
if I get to that point, when I get to that point that I'm not doing what I need to do or be able to do that,
Mhm.
then, be real to yourself. It's time to go.
Yeah.
But right now, I still feel like I can contribute as long as
Yeah.
I can climb those stairs every day.
That's right. I know. Those long, very dangerous
Love those
stairs.
stairs.
I love it. Before we shift into another segment, is there anything else that you would like to share that we haven't covered, either personally or professionally, as part of your story?
Yeah. I want to share that after 40 something, 45 years of marriage, my husband asked for a divorce.
Mm,
And that changed my life in a different way, also. I've always been independent, uh, pursuing things or whatever, but you always want to think you're going to live and die with that person or whatever. So that changed, but the good thing was that the children were grown,
mm-hmm.
so I didn't have to deal with that situation. But I'm that independence has helped me along the way, and I'm making it.
Yeah.
Things are good.
Yeah.
Things are
How many
good.
children do you have, Zell, for our
8.
listeners?
We have
8. So
8.
you have a big
Yes.
family too. You came from a big
Yes.
family, you're the baby, and then you have a big family of your own.
Right.
What has that process of going through a divorce later in life, what lessons did you learn from that? Besides just knowing that your independence helped you through that,
Yeah.
what else have you learned from that you would share with someone who may not think that it could happen to them or who are
Mhm.
going through that same
Mhm.
process right now?
That you will be okay.
Okay.
It's going to take a while to get adjusted to that,
Hmm.
to learn to not say Mrs. and say
Yeah.
Miss and
Yes.
write Miss or whatever. And because my last child is not at home, your status changed in filing taxes. You go from you go from head of household to single.
Oh,
And
wow.
hey, so there are some things that happen, but again, just knowing what you have to take care of. Hey, now I have to go and check my gas, see when I
Hmm.
need to order gas, or
Hmm.
if something is wrong with the car. Be responsible for all of that. So
Hmm.
you just learn to do, and you'll be okay.
You'll be okay.
Hmm.
I love that. That's so, it's hard for those of us that still have a partner that
Yeah.
we started life with or this journey with, that's hard to understand, but there is so much to do when you're doing it
Yeah.
alone.
Yes.
So much.
Yes.
And um, I think maybe, if anything, encourage other women to be a little bit more independent. Ask those questions. Be a
Yes,
little bit
indeed.
more involved. Know
Yes,
how to pay
indeed.
bills or know how to
Yes.
access your bank account,
Yes. Yes.
and be involved from that aspect, just to, if anything, have that know-how.
Mhm.
Because if you know how to run your household
Mhm.
on every level,
Mhm.
that helps you transition
It
into
does.
whatever you're doing
It
at work
does.
or the
It
community.
does.
It's just being engaged.
Yeah. Now I'm not bashing marriage. I love being
Oh,
married
yeah,
or
no,
anything.
no, no. Look, I am married. I'm
but
just
but
talking.
but know that you will be okay
Yes,
if that situation changes.
that's right.
So
Well, it happens to more of us than we
I
realize,
know.
and it can happen at any time. And I know, for like me and my husband, we have that rule of, always communicate now,
Yeah.
because, raising a family, going through different circumstances, and you never know what tomorrow brings,
That's
or
right.
even later today.
That's right.
And things change all the time. And our rule to ourselves is, I don't want to wake up to a stranger in 10 or
Right.
20 years,
Yep.
because that is a life wasted, and that's not intentional. Things happen, decisions
Things
get
happen.
made,
Yeah.
people get pulled apart, and there's 100 million different reasons for someone
Right.
to get divorced.
Right.
And it's always hard, it's heartbreaking. I'm a product of a divorce, and I didn't even know my father. So it just breaks up
Yeah.
families, and
Mhm.
we all know that.
Mhm.
And circumstances are different for everyone, but that is so encouraging to know that you
Yeah.
will be
You
okay.
will be.
You are a
Mhm.
strong woman.
Yes, indeed.
And find your support group.
Yep.
I think if I've learned anything in our conversation today, is yes, you will be okay. You can do anything, but you better have a good support group. Get your
Right.
friends, get your
Right.
family, whoever that is,
Yep.
that you can lean on during those difficult
That's
times.
right.
I feel like that's what I hear you say. I know you have a
It's
lot of
you
wonderful
said it
friends.
well.
You have a lot of wonderful friends. And I don't
I
ever want us to
do.
be naive in thinking that that wouldn't happen to us,
Very good
because
point.
it's the same thing with what we do with our women
Mhm.
entrepreneurs group. Whether you're aspiring or are a serial entrepreneur, one of the
Mhm.
things that I have learned on my journey is that you don't know where life is going to take
You do
you.
not.
And if you have something within you that is constantly tugging at you, and wanting your attention, and it's
Mhm.
something you've always wanted to do,
Mhm.
you should go for it. There's
I
different ways
agree.
of doing it. You don't necessarily have to make a rash decision. And
Right.
for
Mhm.
me, it's important to make sure we're financially sound with my family, and
Mhm.
they're taken care of, and that's fine
Yeah.
and dandy. But there are ways and opportunities for you to pursue your
Right.
calling, or what you're interested
It
in. In
is.
your case,
Mhm.
I was breaking barriers throughout my professional life, but I was also pursuing community efforts
Right.
that you were passionate about,
Mhm.
and that has flourished into who you are as a person. And what a testimony, an example
Ah,
that
thank you.
is,
Thank
especially
you.
with your work now with the Boys and Girls Club, for them to see leaders of their organization for African American children coming from different households
Right.
and privileges that some of the other community
Mhm.
members are.
Mhm.
That gives them inspiration and hope.
Ah.
Not everyone, like, that's one thing I wish people would realize, is not everyone comes from the same background and
That's
home
right.
experiences that you have. So when you are in front of children and you're influential, especially children that look like you know, because it's a historically marginalized community, and we know that, and being aware of that and
Mhm.
doing something about it,
Mhm.
those kids can do
They
anything.
can.
I want to share just one. This is one of the things that sometimes I feel like maybe I am doing the right thing. You never know with kids. But when I had the opportunity to support the Boys and Girls
Mhm.
Club, I had the opportunity to include
And
my
thank you for
daughter.
that again.
Oh, please no, this is not about that at all. I had the opportunity to bring in my daughter with that.
Yep.
One thing that I have heard a lot of our community members say is, I wish I would have brought my kids along. It's one thing to pour back into the community.
Mhm.
We're their parents at home. They don't see
Right.
that person
Right.
that we're out there doing. They
Yeah.
see a totally different side. And I had an opportunity to bring my daughter with me. And she's very aware that not everyone is like her, doesn't
Mhm.
have the same opportunities and privileges and
Mhm.
access to
Mhm.
resources.
Right.
And out of the mouth of babes, that one of those afternoons that we were there, she actually met and some friend, and kids are amazing, because if you
Yeah,
don't
they
if you
are.
don't teach them the biases that we have, they will
Right.
not pick up on them.
Nope.
And she made a lot of friends, and she even said, "They're just like me, Mama." They're,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
What
"They
a
are."
revelation.
But she thought that because maybe they have less than from a resource
Mhm.
standpoint, they would be different. But
Mhm.
she's like, "They're amazing. They're great. They're my best friend." You know,
Yeah.
that's because kids don't see that. They don't understand that they're
They're
not there
taught.
yet. They're
They're taught.
taught
They're
all of their
taught that.
biases. And I
Yeah.
think it's so
Yeah.
critically important for us to allow them to realize, or actually the adults need to realize that is what
Right.
you teach your kids,
Right.
because they're no different and they can accomplish anything they want
They
to. Their
can.
journey there may be a little
Yeah.
different. I know mine was and yours was, and we all had our own challenges and
Mhm.
barriers,
Mhm.
but um, it's what we make of it, but
That's
then it's
it.
also our responsibility and
What
obligation
we
to do
teach them.
otherwise with the next
Yep.
generation,
You're
right?
right. Exactly right.
Let's talk about some of your advice for other women who are either looking, in this case, to start their own business
Okay.
or maybe pursue their dream career. And let's acknowledge or start with the young individual and there or maybe a woman in mid-career who's looking to change.
Okay. For me, I would say make sure that it's something that you have a passion for.
Mm.
My son and I brought Taziki's Mediterranean
Oh,
Cafe to
yes, that's
Tupelo.
right.
Well, we wanted to do it because there was no other Mediterranean places in Tupelo, and Jason is from Alabama, and that's where it started with the owner of the corporation. And he saw the success that they were having there. So he and I went into it. Both of us love good food, but because it was a business, you have to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us worked full-time jobs at other places. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. It survived for 7 years under us.
Congratulations,
Ah,
by the
thank
way.
you.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And we didn't want it to close through bankruptcy or anything like so we transferred ownership. But I said all of that to say if you have a desire to do something, be focused on it. Know the time, the expense that might go into it, all of those things. Get as much knowledge about it as you can, but don't be afraid to try it.
Yeah.
Even if you have to go and volunteer at doing whatever it is for a
Yeah.
while. If you're interested in being an owner too, like something a restaurant, talk to another owner
Yeah.
or whatever to see because I had one to tell me before we did this that Zell, owning a restaurant is hard work.
Mm.
And I took it with a grain of salt because I'm thinking, I'm not going to be in there in the kitchen.
That's
I'm
right.
not going to be serving or whatever. But it takes you being there. And if you're really having that passion, it may not be a restaurant, but if you've got any other kind of business, know that you have to be there. The
Mm.
people expect to see you as the owner. They're expecting you to be there to assure that the quality
Mm.
is what it should be because they feel like if it's you, then it's going to be good
Yeah.
if you have those relationships or whatever. So I say, don't be afraid to try it, but be prepared.
Yeah. Be prepared to put in the work. And
Yeah.
restaurant business is such a tough.
Oh.
So it really is a
Oh, I
testament
found out.
for you guys to be open for 7 years and have that
Yes.
partnership
Yes.
and have your full-time jobs to be able to do that. But
Yes.
you're right. Even the workers there are looking for you as the
That's
leader.
right.
And then people coming to support you are
That's
looking to
right.
see you too.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting dynamic. But
Yeah.
that's just a challenge. It shouldn't be a wall to stop you from doing
Right.
something. I love that. So,
Thank you.
what are some things you learned about having a restaurant business as someone who's never done that before?
It's expensive. And
Yes, it is.
if you don't make the sales, you're gonna have to find the money from somewhere,
Oh,
which is your own
wow.
personal funds or
Yes.
whatever. But I learned about the dedication that some of the employees had. We tried to let them know that, hey, this is an opportunity for you as the business grows, you can grow because our goal was to open up one in Oxford, one in
Oh,
Starkville. We
yeah.
were looking for all of that. But when you don't have the funding, sales makes everything. And the thing is, be prepared, but we learn, about different people, workers, and restaurant workers. they have a hard time sometimes because they're
Mm-hmm.
basically part-time jobs, except for the top management or whatever. So you get to know people from where they are. That's one of the good things about it. And the community, seeing that support, people that come every week, you get a new realization of that
Yeah.
friendship. I really appreciate all of this, but just being there again, it's who you are, letting people know, but
Yeah.
knowing that, tell your employees, be real with them. If things are not going well,
Mm-hmm.
explain why. So that honesty and that integrity,
Yeah.
no matter what job or what field you're in, let your people know what's going on.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. So, with that in mind, now that you're continuing your journey with the Boys and Girls Club,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were a restaurateur who sold her business, what are your future goals and aspirations, and are you taking any steps to achieve them? Is there anything else coming up?
Well. No, I am actually, working. Had a daughter that got married, and so I'm trying to work and build my bank account back where I can get
Gotcha.
ready to retire. That's
Yes.
my next thing. I have, there were four of us. It's three now. Two high school girlfriends, and every year we go on vacation
Oh, fun.
somewhere. And two of them had retired, and me and another one were still working. So at some point, not this year, but I, just kind of easing toward retirement and everything. Nothing has, come up to me to say, "Do you want to do this?" I don't see myself sitting at home doing
Mm,
nothing. That's where I show up and do something for somebody.
yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Something to look forward to. That's your
Yeah,
next plan is
yeah,
to become sound, and I love it. I love it.
yeah.
One last question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you could tell one thing to your younger self,
Oh,
what advice would you give
oh,
yourself looking back
oh,
at your journey?
wow. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Mm,
And that has always been a caution for me because I've seen over the years where, and just telling the truth like it is, most of the time, a black person, if they make a mistake, that's it.
mm.
They don't get a second chance.
And it closes the door for the
It
next
closes
person.
the door for the next chance.
Yep.
So I had a tendency to take less risk of things, ideals that I may have had because, or saying some things because of the consequences of it.
Mm,
So knowing what you want to do, and if you've got that unction or that gut feeling, go for it. Go for it and see what happens. Things have changed in all of the years that I've been in this, starting out young. It's gotten better, and
yes.
that's the good thing. So I would say, take those risks and try.
Oh, I love it. What a beautiful way to end our session together,
Thank
Zell.
you.
This has been phenomenal. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your courage. Thank you for all of your work and everything you have done for our community. It has been a pleasure to hear your story and share it with
Ah,
our listeners. So
thank
thank
you,
you.
Albin. Thank you and the community for just accepting me for who I
Well, that's easy.
am.